Hi, in this video we'll be looking at how we can secure web channel content that includes reports, menus and tabs. Here I've got an example of a dashboard where I have tabs and here's a dashboard, and if I go to another tab I've got a menu down the side, and depending on the menu selection the report is displayed. What we'll be looking at in this video is how we can hide tabs depending on the user account, also hide items from the menu selection, and also secure the reports so that even if the user has a direct link to the report, they'll be denied access to the report. In this video we'll be creating a simplified version of the dashboard you just saw before. What we'll do is create a menu over a group of reports and display the report out on the right hand side. Then we'll create some tabs across the top to organize the report groups, and then we'll create a header up the top. And the final step is that we'll apply security so that only certain accounts can see the tabs and the reports in the menu. So the first half of this video will be creating the menu and the dashboard, and the second half will actually be securing the content. Let's start by creating the menu over the reports. Go to Publisher, and you can see here that I've got a number of reports already published. Each report has a group code, and you can see here that I've got a number of groups. And the first group I have here is reference, and then another group for planning, material, etc. The first step is to create a menu. So I'm going to the reference group, right click and click Create Menu Report. The first question it will ask us is which group we'd like to target in this menu. So I'm going to use this reference group here, and it's asking me if I'd like the author and version details to be included in the menu. So I don't want those, I just want the title of the report to appear. And the next question is, do we want to put the menu in a layout where the menu is on the left and the report's on the right? If you answer no to this, you'll just get the menu by itself. I'm going to answer yes to this so we get the layout, and it's now created the report. So here's our menu, and it's just over this particular group at this stage. I'm going to edit this published report and just view the query that it's automatically generated for me. You can see that it's gone to the product system, and from there it's found a table called Publisher. So Sharperlight can actually report over the published reports that are in its own system. So here's the web channel and there's the published reports. And you can see here that you can target a particular group, and it's already hard-coded it to that group I just selected before. And there's some other flags here to say, look, only pick up things that are visible. So let's just leave those settings as they are now and go to the link menu and copy the link to the report. And you can see that there's our menu on the left, and if we click on one of the items, there's our report on the right hand side. So far it's looking pretty good, but the next step is to organize this menu so that it appears in our report with tabs across the top. Now I'd like to create some tabs, one called Reference, Planning and Security. Let's go back to Publisher now and create a report that organizes that menu into tabs. But before we do that, let's rename the code that menu was allocated. So I'm just going to change the report code, and the report code, I'd like to call it, in this case, Training B and Menu. Okay. So if I do a search on Training B, I'll see this report. Now I'd like to create another report that's going to organize the menus into tabs. So again, I'm going to use the same group, Train B, and this is going to be the main page. I'm going to give it a code called Home, and I'll give the report a title. Each published report requires some sort of data set behind it, so I still need to define a query. And even though it's just going to be a report with tabs, I'm just going to create a query that pulls out the current company name just to satisfy that requirement. Alright, so now we have the code set and we have a query. Now we can come to the report tab, and where it says layout, just enable that and select edit. In layouts, what you can do is create a dashboard where content is stacked on top of each other, or the other style of dashboard is a tabbed dashboard. So I've just changed the style to tabs. And if I click on new on the right hand side, you can see that this is going to be the first tab. And down the bottom here we have the tab title. So I'm going to change the tab title to be reference. The next point is to change the report code. So on that tab, whatever we select from this lookup list will appear on that tab. In our case, I would like to put the menu that we created just before on this first tab, and it was called Train B Menu. I'm going to click new again to create another tab, and this will be the second menu. So again, I'll set this to menu, and the title of the tab is going to be planning. And the third tab I'll set up as a tab that displays the menu with all the security reports. So again, come up to the report code and change that to menu. So here we have our three tabs: reference, planning, and security. I'm just going to change the options up here to make the tabs a little bit larger, and I'll press OK, apply, so that it at least saves the published report, and now we can copy the link. So let's have a look and see what we've got now. Now you'll see that there's currently an error message on the screen saying that it can't find the old name for that menu. That was because we renamed it and there was still a link left. So let's just go back to the menu and find out what's happening there. So this is the menu, and if we go to the layout on the menu that was automatically generated for us at the time of creating the menu, you can see it's still got the old name in here. So we just need to update that to Train B. And if we save that, we can refresh the report again, and there's our menu. And if we go to the planning tab, you'll see the menu appear again, and again on the security tab. Now currently the group that the menu targets is hard-coded in the query. What we'd like to do now is modify the group that the query that drives the menu targets, so that this will be the reference group and planning group and security group. So let's go back to the menu and have a look at the query that drives the menu. So currently it's always going to the group reference. So that's okay for the time being, but what I'd like to do is set a parameter in the tab report that's going to override this group. And when it overrides it, it targets the name of that filter. So if I just have a look at the name of the filter, it's called group. So that's the name we're going to override. Now the filter accepts a to and a from range, so it's possible to do things like groups in this list or groups like this, but in our case we just want to target a single group. So I'm going to modify that filter by going to the options and changing the behavior so that it just takes a single value. So by default we'll go to reference and we'll save that new query and exit out there and go to the tab report, which I've called Train B Home. Let's go back into the layout. There's our tabs for the menus, reference, planning and security. So if we go to reference, down the bottom here you can see there are URL parameters, and we can override the filter criteria of that menu by putting in a parameter down the bottom here. So if you go ampersand, lowercase FLT, and then the name of the filter, in this case it's group, and then equals, and then the name of the group that you want to target. In this case, the first tab will target the reference. And if I go to planning, the group I want to target there is PLN. And for the security tab, I'd like to target the group SEC. Now, if I had a to and a from range, I would do something like this, where I do the from, and then I do FLT again, but on the group I'd put _2 for the to value. But since we've set that to a single value, there's no need to do the from and the to. So now I've put that parameter on each tab. Let's save the report and go back and view the menu. Just refresh the page, and there's our reference list. And if we go to planning, now we're getting another list of reports displayed in the menu. And you can see the link right down the bottom where it's got PLN, and finally security. Now what I'd like to do is create a header across the top so we can actually see what account we're logged in as, and also we can put some branding across the top. So let's go back to Publisher, and this is our main tabbed report. And if you go to the Reports tab, you can see here we've got the ability to modify the header. So I'm just going to hit Enable there and Edit, and you can see it's asking for HTML. Now, if you've got someone with HTML skills, you can ask them to put in some HTML for your header, or you can go to the Reference button, and under the Publisher folder you'll see there's a few templates. Select the template that's Custom Report Header HTML template. Just double click on that and it'll produce some HTML that you can then modify. You can see that there are some tags in here where it's placing the current published title inside that HTML, and if you want to change the branding, you can see up here there's the image that it's going to be displaying. So let's press OK there and apply, and we'll refresh the page. You can see that at the moment I'm logged in as user 1, and there's that logo that we were talking about before. So now we're ready for stage 2, where we're going to secure the content. And the first thing I'd like to do is secure this security tab. So user 1 will be able to see the security tab, but if it's another user, I want to hide the tab. Go back to Publisher, and where we've done the layout for the tabs, click on Edit and go to the Security tab. You'll notice that there's a button called Security. If we click on this, we can allocate which user groups or users have access to this tab. Now, if someone has admin rights, well, they'll all be able to access everything. So I'm going to the list of users in this case, and I'm going to give user 1 access to the security tab. That means that if I log in as guest on another browser, the security tab should disappear. So let's test that. So I'm going to save this and press apply, and I'll refresh the current report, and sure enough the tab's still there. And if I take the address, in this browser I'm logging in as guest, and because I've logged in as guest, the security tab has disappeared. So if I was to sign out and sign in as user 1, I'd get back that security tab. The next thing I'd like to do is secure some of the items in this report menu. So you can see over here we have planning, and on planning we have two quite sensitive reports where you could copy budget details and also delete budget details. I'd like to lock this down so that only user 1 has access to copy planning and delete planning. Let's go back now to Publisher, and to secure a report you need to actually go to the report itself. So I've done a search here on version because it's the version copying that I'd like to secure. So I'm going to double click on that report, and this is the report, and we come to the security tab. This allows us to lock down access to particular user groups and users, just as we did with the tabs. So I'm going to open up the user and grant access to user 1 for this report, and I'll do the same for deleting of plans. I'll come to the security tab and grant access to user 1 and hit apply. Let's refresh user 1's version of the dashboard, and I still have the security tab, and if I come to planning they can still copy and delete plans. Let's go now to the guest user, and I'm just going to refresh that page and have a look at planning, and you can see now that those reports have disappeared from the list. Now you may think, well, what if they have a link to the report? What if they were to run that directly? So let's go back to user 1, and I'm just going to run that report in a separate window, and I'm going to copy the URL address to that report, and let's say that user guest was to try and run that report, and you can see that they'll be denied access. Now there is a difference between securing report content through the security settings you've just seen and row level security. For example, this particular account has access to certain companies, and those companies are actually controlled by a row level security model that's controlled by the data model or site setup. Let's have a quick look at some of those settings. If I open up site setup, you can see here we have our accounts and our groups, and depending on the system that you're accessing, it'll have various settings. For example, if I look at SAP Business 1, it has a security setting where you can define the list of companies that a particular group or user has access to. So if this was done, then even if the report hadn't been locked down, the user would only be able to access those particular companies. And in more extreme cases, if the user has a predefined list of accounts that they can see, they'll only see those. So in effect, you could, through row level security, have people run the same report but see only their subset of data. But that requires either that the data model support it or you actually implement row level security. So what we've covered here is just securing the report content. There will be other videos to deal with row level security, but hopefully this has given you enough to deal with securing the basic content of web channel reports.